The Labour Party has got smaller in Scotland and it's got angrier as it has diminished. And it's now fishing in a pool of votes, a very small pool of votes for centre-left unionists in the country. And it cannot win from that position. It can't even grow from that position. So what it needs to do, if it's really serious about its future, is not obsess with which person is best placed to lead it, but think about its actual purpose as a political party. And the core challenge it has to understand and face down the barrel of now is, how does it appeal to people who support independence?
On Tuesdays, we speak to former Tory leader William Hague. A very good morning to you, William.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. And we're also joined by former Scottish Labour leader Kezia Dugdale. Morning, Kezia.
Good morning.
So I'm going to get my words out here at some point. I don't even know what time it is.
What time of day is it? Good morning to you both. Lovely to have you here. And here are some of the stories we've been covering so far this morning on Times Radio Breakfast. The government says it wants to tackle the number of young people in the UK who are not in education, employment or training with more technical education by encouraging technical training from a younger age. The CEO of Reed Group, James Reed, told us that while AI has replaced a lot of jobs, it can't replace the jobs that require you to wash your hands at the end of the day.
AI seems to be replacing a lot of jobs pretty quickly, but the jobs it is not replacing, I thought this was well put by someone I was speaking to the other day, are jobs that involve you washing your hands at the end of your working day. So the jobs that involve you washing your hands at the end of the working day will continue, and there'll be lots of opportunities in those spaces. And if you start thinking about what those jobs are or may be, there's many of them technical or vocational types of jobs, and they're great jobs, and that's what people should be preparing for.
Now, US President Donald Trump is meeting Zelensky and Netanyahu at the funeral of the influential politician and attorney Senator Lindsey Graham today. The Times and Sunday Times Washington editor Katie Balls told us that it wasn't an unusual setting for diplomatic talks in the capital.
The best place to network is a funeral when it comes to the political capital, which I think some may raise their eyebrow at. But I think if you think about and you can very much say that's not tasteful, it's not respectful. But Lindsey Graham was, of course, quite the operator himself. And I think if you look at the casters we're expecting tomorrow at this funeral, you can imagine that Netanyahu will be among those using it to land their message.
And as wildfires rage in France and Spain and indeed elsewhere, the disaster recovery expert Lucy Easthope spoke to us and gave this warning.
Under various governments in the last few years, it's become thought of that where emergency planning is done is at local government, and they have traditionally been seen as not deserving of funding. This is an area where we can all ask for better preparedness. Wildfires is something that will come to us all. It doesn't need to be remote. We've seen it take out parts of Essex and parts of London in the past. We don't need to be thinking this is somebody else's problem.
So there you go, lots on the docket this morning. Is a diplomat's funeral the best place for political networking? Are intergenerational family holidays a good idea? But let's start with the conversation that really has been dominating the programme this morning, and that's Andy Burnham's new plans to get young people trained up into what he is calling hard hat skills. It's a way of tackling the problem of young people who are not in education, employment or training. We've got 1 million of them in the UK. If things continue as they are, it could rise to 1.25 million. Kezia, I want to start with you. What's your take on this? Is this a good idea? Is this the right shake-up that the education system has long needed?
It is a good idea, a really good idea, and it's something that the political classes should have had on their agenda since the early 2000s, when the need to make further and higher education have a parity of esteem between them has been really obvious to anyone that looks at the detail of it. I've been a long-time supporter of regional economic skills strategy, the idea that you match the needs of local businesses with the needs and hopes and futures of the young people within those respective areas is a really good one. But I think there's a few caveats to this policy that absolutely have to be nailed down for it to be a success. First of all, it has to be an option for everyone. It can't just be about better options for kids that live in poorer areas. And there's a danger that if you don't fund it properly, then you still end up with middle and upper classes wanting to send their kids to university and people in working class communities just having better access to apprenticeships. That's not going to deliver the parity of esteem that you want. You also have to maintain really high standards of maths and English at all stages. You can't just abandon those agendas. You have to involve business meaningfully, and an apprenticeship or an opportunity like this needs to be a serious long-term investment in a young person. It can't just be badged as 6 months of support and marked as an apprenticeship, move on. This is a big agenda. It's going to require a lot of public money.
Indeed it is, as these things often do. William, I want to come to you and ask the question, do you think there is an appetite and a willingness for all the various parts of this to work? Is there a willingness from business, from various leaders in local areas, from local businesses to perhaps take this on, and the huge amount of work that it will be? Is that appetite there?
Oh, I think the appetite is there. This country is short of technical and vocational skills. However, it would have to be not so bureaucratic that small and medium-sized businesses are prevented from, in effect, from taking part in that, in working with schools and colleges on local skills. And of course, remember, business has been hit by the same government that's proposing this has also put up employers' national insurance contributions, so it's much more expensive to employ people. And that doesn't seem to be mentioned in this so far, in what Andy Burnham is proposing so far. But of course, we are short of these skills. There should be a good pathway in education into vocational and technical skills. Kezia's caveats, though, I completely agree with them, and would really stress that in England in particular, we've driven up in the last 15 years the standards of English schools in reading and maths have really increased substantially, gone well up the international league tables. That helps people with every type of employment in the future. So it's really important not to lose that. And the other caveat I would add, that is a bit different from what you were hearing earlier about the, this definition of if you wash your hands at the end of the day, your job will be okay. Actually, a lot of those jobs will also change. Robotics is coming along at great speed, so things like 3D printing and so on. So if we're going to start people at the age of 14 in these things, it's really important it's not all out of date by the time they're 18. And I would need a little bit of convincing about that.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, William. How do you future-proof these sorts of things? I would also ask you this, William. Why have so many attempts that sound similar to what Burnham is talking about this morning, why have they not worked in the past? I could run through the list. I'll mention a couple. The new T-level system, which aims to put the sort of vocational technical courses on equal footing with academic work. That was Philip Hammond who announced that in 2017. Boris Johnson in 2019. We want to elevate practical and technical qualifications. Rishi Sunak, just a few years ago, announced his plans for British Baccalaureate. Why have these attempts, and indeed Keir Starmer tried it as well, he sort of announced something last year. Why have these attempts failed, and is there room for Andy Burnham's attempt to succeed?
Yeah, well, there is room for him to succeed if he manages to come up with something that squares all these issues that Kezia and I have just raised. So it's not as simple as it looks, and that all those issues are one reason why these things have failed. And I think they or not made. They've not all failed. They just haven't done as well as was intended. And I think there's two reasons for that. One is we do have a cultural problem in the UK about this. It's not just how things are organised. It is we have valued for a long time academic education more highly than technical education, and so that's something that you have to put right across society. People have to want to do these things and think that it's something that is esteemed and valued, which it really ought to be. So that's one problem. And the other, I go back to the small business problem, because if you see the plumbers or the builders or whoever you might have come to your house to do whatever, not many of them have apprentices these days and people attached to them. Those that do, those young people have a fantastic opportunity. But the bureaucratic nature of it, the difficulty of small businesses relating to what's proposed by governments, I think that has been a big gap in all of this.
I think that's a really pertinent point. Kezia, I want to bring you in here because actually last summer I had a fair bit of work done and there was builders coming in and out of the house, decorators, electrician. all of them were over the age of 40 and none of them could keep an apprentice, and they had real trouble keeping their apprentices. They said the rate at which they are going through apprentices, and also they can't get young people to work in the business because they're just not interested. Kezia, I wonder if there is an appetite amongst young people not to work. I think they do have an appetite to work and they want to make money, but is there an appetite for these types of jobs or this type of education or vocation skills that we're putting on the platter? I wonder if we've done the criminal thing and we've talked about the young people without asking the young people.
Well, you may have a good point there, but I do think there is a huge appetite for this agenda. And what's different about what Andy Burnham's proposing here versus all the different initiatives we've had in the past is that they are based on devolving power out of Westminster, or as it would be in Scotland, from the Scottish Government down to kind of regional economic growth areas, and you would have skills built into that. And what that means is the jobs become much more visible and obvious to people. So, if you're in Fife, where I live, and you can see all the investment going into the dockyards here and all the engineering jobs and apprenticeships that are available to you there, then you could design a skills policy that was suited for Fife schools to have better access to those future jobs that we know that the yards have the books for well into the future. It would be completely different in the southwest of Scotland, which relies so much more, for example, on retail and hospitality jobs, where the pathways and skills pipelines have to look different, geared towards the jobs that are likely to be available in those parts of the country. So devolving it down and tailoring it to regional needs is far more likely for young people to see that they have a future for them in the areas that they come from.
William, you've written in The Times yesterday about the fact that young people here, or perhaps we, could learn from India's cockroach movement. Can you just give us a little bit of insight into that?
Yeah, in today's Times, actually, today's newspaper.
Sorry, my apologies.
You've been up so long, it feels like
I know.
And it comes out on the Times website the night before, so that's also confusing. But no, it is in today's newspaper, my column. And I'm saying there that, look, across the world, young people are getting very disenchanted. And we've just seen in India this remarkable revolt that has forced the resignation of the education minister. So really the first time that the government of all-powerful Prime Minister Mr. Modi has been humbled in some way. Similar things have happened in many other countries across Asia-Pacific and Africa. And I'm saying, don't assume that all the young people in Europe and Britain aren't discontented, because there is a question of generational fairness now about our finances. My generation have awarded ourselves nice pensions.
You have indeed.
And it will
good
take
houses.
More and more, yes. And every house we bought went up in value.
Quite.
And indeed, if you're as old as me, you didn't even have to pay any university.
Yeah, we're not bitter about it at all, William.
You got a maintenance grant, all of it. It's very, very different now. And so it's important to address, and of course, in what Andy Burnham is going to be talking about today, he's partly trying to address that, but it's not just about vocational education. There's many other things we need to do, I'm saying in my column, to help prepare a new generation for this more turbulent world. And one of those, by the way, is encouraging entrepreneurship, because people are going to need to reinvent themselves, to fail before they succeed, to set up their own business. Let's have the government talking about that in addition to what they're talking about today.
Well, it's a fascinating piece, and you can read it, as we've established, in the newspaper and online as well. But just to your point, William, you've segued perfectly into that because we've got a small clip here that Andy Burnham has put on social media, just detailing a few more details.
I want an education system based on parity between academic and technical. In a fundamental change to the system, I'm announcing new routes for 14-year-olds to get early access to technical education, skills training, work experience, and connections with employers, giving them the knowledge and experience they need to get quality, well-paid jobs where they live. This is just the start of our work to restore opportunity and hope across the country.
That is Andy Burnham rocking out, seemingly, in that video. Kezia, I want to kind of bridge this actually into something else to ask you about this morning, and that is the Scottish Labour leadership contest, which is kind of underway in that we have a couple of candidates. They are MSP Michael Mara and returning MSP Monica Lennon, who was not successful in May's election, but by virtue of the list system in Scotland, now that Anas Sarwar has departed as an MSP, Monica Lennon is, to put it colloquially, next in the taxi rank, and so she will become an MSP and intends to run for the leadership. I wonder how much of Scottish Labour's future, under whichever leader emerges here, how much of that is actually dictated by Andy Burnham at this point, and his new Prime Minister honeymoon will sort of overlap this leadership contest for however long it lasts. I just wonder, is Burnham the crucial factor in determining the future of Scottish Labour, or is the Scottish Labour leader still an important role to take seriously?
So it's obviously an important role to take seriously, Calum, having done it myself. There is no more important job.
Inadvertently provocative there. Apologies.
I know, you're just teasing. I think the answer to that question depends on whether you think Keir Starmer lost Scottish Labour the election in May or not, or whether you think it was more than one problem that had been baking for some time. And let me say to you from the off here, I don't think there should be a leadership contest right now, because the party hasn't yet worked out why it lost. And I really worry now that when you have a review of why you've lost alongside a leadership contest, the leadership contenders will answer the question about how they lost in a way that they think is going to appeal to the voters in the contest, rather than actually speak the truth. And here's the truth of it, Calum. The Labour Party has got smaller in Scotland, and it's got angrier as it has diminished. And it's now fishing in a pool of votes, a very small pool of votes for centre-left unionists in the country. And it cannot win from that position. It can't even grow from that position. So what it needs to do, if it's really serious about its future, is not obsess with which person is best placed to lead it, but think about its actual purpose as a political party. And the core challenge it has to understand and face down the barrel of now is, how does it appeal to people who support independence? Now, it's not about ceding ground on the constitutional question, but it's about making sure that you grow the size of the pool that you're appealing to. What is it that means that SNP voters are so reluctant to lend their vote to Labour in Holyrood elections, but very happy to give it to them in Westminster elections?
Yeah, I think that's fascinating. It's one that we'll watch with you, Kezia, in the weeks and months ahead. I think this is going to be quite a protracted process by the look of the timetable I was glancing at last night. So, lots
painful.
more to discuss. Yeah, painful. Right, okay.
That's the word you're looking for.
Enough. So lots more to discuss on that as time goes by. Right, Kezia Dugdale and William Hague are staying with us for the next few minutes to talk about whether funerals are the best places to network. We'll explain more about that. And if you've ever been on holiday, or if you would ever go on holiday with your sort of extended family, all the people who are usually around the Christmas dinner table, do you fancy jetting off to an Airbnb in the south of France? Well, maybe not the south of France right now, actually. Sorry, I don't mean to be
that,
irreverent there. But would you go on holiday with your extended family? This is Times Radio Breakfast with Salma El-Wardany and Calum Macdonald in association with Nationwide. A good way to bank. President Trump is meeting President Zelensky of Ukraine and Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel today in Washington at the funeral of the influential politician and Senator Lindsey Graham. William, one of the things that came up from our Washington editor, Katie Balls, on the programme today was that, however sort of uncomfortable it might sound, actually these sorts of funerals are extremely good places for networking and for meeting people and for having important conversations, and it feels like actually the funeral of Lindsey Graham is going to be the backdrop for that, given how many influential and important people are all going to be there.
Yes, I'm sure that will be right, actually, and it is very important, of course, that particularly that Zelensky and Trump talk. The Trump varies so much on Ukraine according to who he thinks is winning, and there's a lot of evidence that Ukraine is doing much better in the war. So every opportunity to get more American support is very important. And funeral, it is true, political funerals are like this, and can end up with weird combinations. When I went to the funeral of King Hussein of Jordan a long time ago, I ended up sitting in a room with President Chirac of France and King Juan Carlos of Spain, just having a chat, waiting for the funeral. When Yasser Arafat walked in.
Wow.
And he sat there, and then we all had a chat. I can't remember what we chatted about, but of course it was probably inconsequential at the time. But you can get some strange combinations of it. So it's not just that Trump will meet Netanyahu and Trump will meet Zelensky, because that's very predictable, and they all meet all the time. It's who they will meet, who they weren't expecting to meet. Who's thrown in there from Latin America. Which European leaders get an extra opportunity to influence Trump in some way. Yeah. This is the thing that gets really interesting at a funeral: the unusual combinations of people.
Yeah. What's small talk with Yasser Arafat like?
Oh, actually, he was big on small talk. Yeah, he was. He was quite I wouldn't call him jolly exactly, but actually he was quite a vivacious figure who enjoyed a conversation, and you could talk to him for a long time. You might not get anywhere, but you could talk to him for a long time, no problem.
Kezia, have you done any deals at any political funerals lately?
No, but I agree with William that they're very useful, dare I say it, events to have what are formal conversations, but unfettered by sort of civil servant interaction. The conversations that can be had in quiet corners over a lukewarm sausage roll, where you can make connections and be hooked up to someone that you want to speak to. It does have a value.
How do you bridge from awful day, lovely service, about that war? I don't know how you make the leap from kind of where you are to what you want to talk about.
You're assuming that people are starting at awful service, like wonderful service. I think there might just be maybe an assumption that you go in and you're with the person that you can't get FaceTime with under any other circumstance, and like Kezia said, maybe away from prying eyes and ears, and you just go straight. I mean, you just have to go straight in with it, surely.
Yeah, I guess. Would that be your approach, Kezia? Just if you need to have the chat, have the chat.
Yeah, and I think the way in is to inquire after somebody, right, that you're interested in. Yeah. So it's all about those soft-com skills, isn't it, really?
Yeah. Well, look, we might be talking about funerals and having awkward conversations at funerals, but let's move on to having awkward conversations with family holidays. We've been talking about whether intergenerational family holidays are a good idea. Kezia, what do you say? Would you go on holiday with your family?
So we are in low-level initial negotiations about this in our family WhatsApp group, because I have 4 nieces and nephews under the age of 6.
Wow.
And 2 sisters-in-laws who would desperately like their aunties to come on holiday and do a little bit of babysitting alongside being part of the wider family fun. So, and we're used to going on child-free holidays to resorts that are ideally child-free. So the negotiation territory is quite vast at the minute, but it'll happen.
Make sure you've got your terms set out there, Kezia, because this really sounds like it's more for the parents to have a bit of off time. William, what do you say?
Oh, yeah, I'm all in favour of that. I have 3 sisters, 5 nieces and nephews, 10 great nieces and nephews, and we do twice a year. We get together, actually.
Twice?
But the key to it is we get together for a short time. That is, for a few days. So when you're talking about an extended family holiday, no, one reason we all get on so well together is keep it short but enthusiastic. And,
okay.
I never spend more than a few days with anybody other than my wife, and that is the key to good friendships all around. Actually,
what are you saying defines a few days? Are we talking few being 3 or less than 2, 3, 4? What's the magic number?
No, 3 is good. 3 is ideal, I think.
Kezia, maybe you could include that into your terms. But the thing is, that we were speaking to a psychologist earlier today, and they pointed out that often when you get around family, regardless of how old you are, you do revert to a younger version of yourself, or just a version of yourself that is perhaps less, independent when you get around parents or grandparents who are prone to telling you off and just that muscle memory.
So grown-up siblings bicker. If your parents are there, you look to them for the decision-making. Grandparents still think they're in charge, and so they'll be telling everybody what to do, despite the fact they might not really have the right level of authority for it. It's all those dynamics, Kezia, that's difficult.
You sound like you're speaking from vast experience.
I'm truly not.
For the record, Calum loves a family holiday.
I love nothing more than spending time with all of my... we have a huge family of cousins and aunties and uncles and all sorts.
Many of which listen to Times Radio and are listening very closely to
How
every word.
cynical you are, how cynical.
He's actually advocated for it extensively, Kezia. So Calum is absolutely the odd one out of all of us, the four of us, because you're negotiating terms. William refuses to go for more than 3 days. I'm not going at all, quite frankly. Calum is the only one advocating for it, which makes it seem to maybe we should go on holiday with Calum's family.
You'd have a great time, I can tell you that. Right, Kezia and William, thank you both so much. It's lovely to speak to you. That is Kezia Dugdale, former Scottish Labour leader, and William Hague, former Conservative Party leader.